Over the years, some familiar faces have quietly disappeared from our screens, leaving fans wondering, did something tragic happen? Were there behind-the-scenes feuds? Or did they simply choose to walk away from the spotlight? The truth isn't as dramatic as the rumors might suggest, but it's just as surprising. Take Bari Weiss. For example, Bari wasn't just another cast member on Storage Wars, he was the show's heart and soul. From his very first auction, rolling up in a vintage car, or wearing his trademark gloves and flashing that mischievous grin, it was clear Bari was something special. He was never the loudest in the room or the fiercest bidder. What Bari brought to the show was something much rarer: pure, unfiltered joy. While most of the cast focused on profits and business strategy, Bari approached every storage unit like it was a time capsule. He wasn't just hunting for valuable items, he was chasing stories, memories, and a sense of adventure. When Bari uncovered an old jukebox, he'd talk more about the music it once played than its resale value. When he found vintage collectibles, he lit up with childlike wonder. For him, the thrill was in the mystery of discovery, not the money, and perhaps that's what made him so refreshing. Bari had already made his fortune in the produce business long before Storage Wars came along. He didn't need the auctions to survive. He was there for the fun. That freedom let him take risks others wouldn't. He'd bid on seemingly worthless units just because they intrigued him, and skip over sure things if they didn't spark his interest. Fans adored this about him. It reminded them why they fell in love with the show in the first place. The thrill of uncovering the unknown. Bari had a rare gift. He could turn a dusty box of old books into a thoughtful discussion on forgotten authors, or transform a broken piece of furniture into a fascinating lesson on vintage craftsmanship. Even the most ordinary finds became extraordinary in his hands. Weiss wasn't just a showman, he was a true enthusiast. His knowledge of antiques and collectibles ran deep. He didn't just know what something was worth. He understood why it mattered. Bari treated each find with respect, giving every dusty object the reverence of a museum piece. For him it was never just about profit, was about the story. So when he quietly stepped away from Storage Wars after 4 memorable seasons, there was no dramatic fallout or angry goodbye. It was more like finishing a favorite book, satisfying, complete, and time to move on. Bari had nothing left to prove. He didn't need the fame or the cameras. He was simply ready for the next chapter. Fans were sad to see him go, but they understood. Bari never came across as someone chasing the spotlight. He was someone who enjoyed the ride and had let us come along for part of it. After his departure, Bari returned to the things he loved most: collecting vintage cars, hunting for antiques, and living life on his own terms, far from the glare of reality TV. Occasionally, he'd show up for an interview or make a surprise appearance. It's always with that trademark grin and easy charm that made him a fan favorite. But everything changed in 2019. While riding his motorcycle through the Extreza of Los Angeles, Bari was involved in a serious crash. It was a devastating accident. He suffered major chest and leg injuries, broken bones, and severe internal damage. The same man who once bounced around auctions with boundless energy now found himself fighting for his life in a hospital bed. Recovery was slow, painful, and grueling. Bari underwent multiple surgeries and months of physical therapy. The hands that once handled delicate antiques had to relearn simple motions. The legs that carried him across auction lots had to be trained to walk again without pain. For someone who had lived so actively and passionately, the forced stillness must have been one of the hardest challenges. But Bari tackled it like he had everything else, with patience, curiosity, and quiet determination, like in the storage units he once explored. He knew that the real treasures often took time to uncover. When he eventually returned to public life, fans were relieved and overjoyed to see him. Smile hadn't changed. His sense of humor still sparkled, but there was a new depth to him. He moved a little slower, spoke a bit softer. The crash had changed him, no doubt, but it hadn't dimmed the light that made Bari Weiss who he was. Dave Hester. The villain you couldn't ignore if Storage Wars were a poker game. Dave Hester was the guy who slammed down his chips stared you down and grinned as he raised the stakes. From the very first episode, Dave played the role of antagonist to perfection. Bold, brash, and impossible to ignore. His infamous "Yoop" catchphrase became a cultural moment, both iconic and irritating. He didn't just want to win, he wanted everyone to know he was winning. Dave thrived on outbidding rivals by a single dollar just to make a point. He was the competitor everyone loved to hate. But in 2018, Dave's story took a sharp, unexpected turn. Late one night, he suffered a stroke that left him with serious impairments. He struggled with speech, coordination, and basic motor skills. The once unshakable bidder who dominated auctions with confidence was suddenly facing the fight of his life this time. Not in a storage lot, but in a hospital room. Instead of standing in front of a storage unit, Dave Hester found himself lying in a hospital bed, facing weeks of physical therapy and recovery. For a man who thrived on control and confrontation, it was a humbling moment. He quietly stepped away from storage wars, disappearing from the spotlight. The man who once battled for dusty boxes was now fighting a far more personal and difficult war: his own health. But Dave didn't give up, bit by bit. He rebuilt his strength and eventually returned to the auction world. Though Storage Wars was no longer his main stage, fans noticed something had changed. It seemed calmer, less fixated on constant conflict, or focused on simply enjoying life. Even for those who hadn't missed his sharp elbows and loud catchphrases, there was a newfound respect. Dave Hester had faced something far more serious than a rival bidder, and he'd come back. It was a reminder that even the loudest voices sometimes need to go quiet before they can be truly heard. Ivy Calvin. From warrior to family man, Ivy Calvin didn't stroll into Storage Wars. He marched in like he owned the place. Former arena football player and mixed martial artist, Ivy brought a competitive edge and quiet authority that turned heads. Nicknamed the King of Palmdale, he had an uncanny ability to sniff out value where others saw junk. But it wasn't just about money. Ivy ran his resale shop, Grandma's Attic, with military-like precision. Every item had a purpose. Every decision was strategic. He was the kind of buyer who could spot a hidden gem beneath a pile of blankets, then crack a joke while pocketing the profit. Over time, though, fans began to notice he was showing up less frequently. The booming laugh and laser focus weren't gone, but they had become rare sightings. Behind the scenes, Ivy was prioritizing his health and shifting his focus to family. In his later appearances, his sons often joined him, transforming the auctions from high-stakes battles into family bonding moments. He wasn't chasing the spotlight, he was choosing what mattered most, without making a fuss or announcing a retirement. Ivy Calvin showed that sometimes the biggest wins happen when no one's watching. Daryl Sheets, the risk-taker with a heart of Barry Weiss, was the cool uncle. Daryl Sheets was the wild older cousin, the one who'd bet his last dollar just for the thrill of the gamble. Known as the Gambler, Daryl lived up to the name with every bid, chasing big wins and rarely playing it safe. Often accompanied by his son Brandon, Daryl turned each locker into a lesson in risk, reward, and the occasional loss. For him, it wasn't just about profits, it was about passing on a legacy, and teaching his son the ropes in a business that could be brutal and exhilarating. But in early 2019, everything changed. After an ordinary day, Daryl began feeling sharp chest pain. At first, he brushed it off, but it quickly escalated. He was rushed to the hospital, where doctors confirmed he'd suffered a massive heart attack. It wasn't just a scare, it was a turning point. Life or death. The man who once thrived on adrenaline and risk was now forced to slow down, not by choice, but by necessity. His absence left a noticeable void on the show. Fans missed the big wins, the even bigger losses, and the boldness that made him unforgettable. But more than anything, they hoped Daryl would get the chance to keep writing his story, just at a different pace. Brandy Pisante and Gerard Schultz. The couple everyone watched. Brandy and Gerard were like the couple next door who somehow found themselves in the middle of the party and ended up stealing the show. Their chemistry, banter, and constant tug-of-war between risk and responsibility made them one of Storage War's most entertaining duos. From their very first episode, viewers could tell Brandi Passante and Gerard Schultz were total opposites. Brandi brought a calm, level-headed approach, carefully scanning storage lockers with laser focus, calculating whether the gamble was worth it. Gerard, on the other hand, had that let's just wing it energy, already itching to place a bid for the sheer thrill of it. Their dynamic was what made them so fun to watch. You could almost see Brandi rolling her eyes as Gerard chased questionable lockers, and Gerard's grin whenever Brandi turned out to be right. They balanced each other perfectly. He brought excitement, she brought caution. Together, they made decisions that sometimes hit the jackpot and other times didn't. On the show, they ran their thrift store, turning their finds into cash. But behind the laughter and playful bickering, things were changing off camera. By 2020, fans learned quietly that Brandi and Gerard had broken up. There was no dramatic on-screen showdown or public feud, it just happened. Later, Brandi hinted that their relationship had been far from easy. She didn't share all the details. The glimpses she gave made it clear things had been complicated and painful. After the split, Brandi shifted her focus to her children, stepping back from the demanding filming schedule. Gerard faded from the spotlight as well. Without their trademark back and forth, the show felt different, less vibrant. They reminded fans that not all treasure hunts are about antiques and collectibles. Sometimes, the real value lies in the chemistry between two people, even if it doesn't last forever. Renee and Casey Nzota, a powerhouse partnership. When Renee and Casey Nzota joined Storage Wars, they brought a fresh and powerful energy. Reen's booming voice could cut through any crowd, and his sharp eye made him a formidable treasure hunter. Casey balanced him perfectly with her warm personality and meticulous attention to detail. They weren't just pretending to be partners, they truly worked as a team, both in business and in life. Renee was no stranger to the resale world, having grown up surrounded by it. Years of experience gave him an edge in spotting treasures and turning them into profits. Casey wasn't just tagging along either, she brought her own expertise from evaluating items to managing their business operations. Together, they formed a dynamic duo. Their playful, on-screen interactions never overshadowed their deep respect for each other's instincts. When they scored big, they celebrated together. When a locker turned out to be a dud, they shrugged it off and moved on. But life isn't always about chasing the next big win. In 2023, Reen's father passed away after a brief battle with lung cancer. It was a difficult time, and fans could feel the emotion in Reen's voice when he spoke about the loss. He expressed heartfelt gratitude for the support he received from viewers and friends. The experience seemed to deepen their outlook, less about quick wins, more about building something meaningful and lasting. Dan and Laura Dodson, the auction's heartbeat for many fans. Storage Wars wouldn't feel the same without the rhythmic chant of Dan Dodson or the bright smile of his wife, Laura. They weren't there to bid, they were there to keep the auctions alive. And they did it with style. Dan Dodson had been auctioneering long before Storage Wars ever hit the screen. His rapid-fire delivery could make even a stack of dusty boxes sound exciting. Right beside him was his wife Laura, whose bright smile and infectious energy kept the atmosphere upbeat and friendly. Together they kept the pace moving, no matter how tense the bidding got. But in 2014, their world came dangerously close to falling apart. One morning, Dan woke up feeling off, his vision blurred, and within minutes, he collapsed. Without hesitation, Laura rushed him to the hospital. Doctors quickly discovered the cause, a brain aneurysm. The situation was critical. Without emergency surgery, Dan might not have survived. The operation was risky, and the recovery even harder. Dan spent months regaining his strength, with Laura by his side every step of the way. Fans breathed a collective sigh of relief when he finally returned to the auction block. Even if he moved a little slower than before, the scare changed everything for them. They still loved the auction world, but now they understood how quickly life can shift. That awareness made their smiles warmer, their laughter louder, their connection even stronger. Mary Patton. The artistic treasure hunter Mary Patton wasn't like the other bidders. While many walked into auctions with calculators in hand, Calculating profit margins and resale values, Mary approached each locker like an adventure tour. A dusty box wasn't just junk, it was a forgotten piece of history, a diamond in the rough, waiting for a second chance. Mary first appeared on Storage Wars Texas, where her creative eye quickly made her stand out. With a background in journalism and design, including a stint as assistant editor at Architectural Digest, she had the rare talent to spot unique pieces and imagine what they could become. On the show, Mary was often seen digging through lockers, pulling out overlooked treasures like old trunks or worn chairs, instantly envisioning how to restore them into something beautiful. Her style was upbeat, quirky, and full of warmth, unlike some bidders who clashed over lockers. Mary's approach was friendly and collaborative. She built strong relationships with other cast members and sometimes teamed up to tackle tough units. Fans loved her infectious enthusiasm. It was impossible not to get excited about her finds, no matter how small. When Mary moved from the Texas spin-off to the original California-based Storage Wars, she brought that same charm with her. She wasn't just buying and selling. She was repurposing, reimagining, and transforming her finds into custom pieces that blended artistry with practicality. Fans affectionately dubbed her the Junkster for her knack of turning so-called junk into treasures. But over time, Mary appeared less and less. She shifted her focus to running her online store, selling her restored creations to customers who shared her love for creative upcycling. She also began taking on personal projects, traveling, and exploring new opportunities beyond the demanding filming schedule. Though no longer a regular on the show, Mary's spirit still resonates. She proved that Storage Wars wasn't just about profit. It was about passion, imagination, and finding beauty in the unexpected. Emily Wares, the auctioneer extraordinaire Emily Wares, may have joined Storage Wars later than most, but she arrived with serious credentials. By the time she appeared in Season 10, Emily was already an award-winning auctioneer. Starting her career at just 17 in Iowa, she trained under her father, himself an auctioneer, and quickly built a reputation for her lightning-fast chant and confident stage presence. Emily's role on the show was different. She wasn't a bidder, but the auctioneer, running the auctions with sharp precision and professionalism. Her style was crisp, polished, and her speed on the mic impressed even the most seasoned cast members. At just 27, Emily was one of the youngest professional auctioneers ever to appear on the series, breaking stereotypes in an industry often dominated by older men. Outside of Storage Wars, Emily had competed in and won several auctioneering competitions, making her a standout in the auction world. On the show, she kept the pace lively, but wasn't afraid to join in the fun. It's often matching bidders' banter with quick, witty comebacks that added to the energy of the auction. Fans quickly grew to appreciate Emily Wares for her unique blend of skill and personality, earning her a devoted following. Although her run on Storage Wars lasted only a season or two, her departure wasn't due to any controversy. Instead, Emily chose to focus on her personal life. She married her longtime partner, started a family, and pursued a new passion, singing. Emily began performing at local events and sharing her music online, proving her talents stretched far beyond the auction block. Kenny Crossley. The Southern charmer Kenny Crossley was impossible to miss in any auction crowd. With his easygoing charm, deep Southern drawl, and quick wit, he had the rare talent to turn even a disappointing locker into a moment filled with laughter. Kenny wasn't just about buying storage units. He was there to have fun, make friends, and enjoy every step of the journey. Originally from New Orleans, Kenny brought a colorful past to the show. He'd worked in law enforcement, run his own business, and dabbled in a variety of odd jobs, all of which gave him a treasure trove of stories to share. His path into the storage auction world began through a friendship with Barry Weiss, one of the show's most eccentric and beloved stars. Kenny first appeared alongside Barry, joining him on his wild buying adventures. Fans immediately loved his sense of humor and genuine, down-to-earth personality. When Barry stepped away from the show, Kenny stayed, carving out his own place among the regular cast. Kenny's bidding style was casual. He avoided heated battles and instead picked his spots carefully, often going for smaller units overlooked by others. His knack for spotting quirky, unusual items perfectly matched his playful nature. Over time, Kenny became known for his memorable one-liners and his ability to lighten the mood even during tense bidding wars. Whether it was fellow cast members or viewers at home, Kenny's humor brought smiles all around. Eventually, Kenny started appearing less frequently not because of drama or bad blood, but because he shifted his focus to other ventures. These included launching his own clothing line and opening a donut shop. Still, his absence didn't go unnoticed. Fans regularly post online wondering where he is and hoping for his return.